Well, we had just finished up on The Shadow Zone, which was a film we did in 2016 and was our first science fiction alien film we had worked on. And James and I decided that we needed to continue with horror sci-fi because that's really where we had found our niche. And so I've been a longtime fan of Creepshow, George Romero's Creepshow, and Tales from the Dark Side, the TV series, and Tales from the Crypt, and of course Rod Serling's Night Gallery and Twilight Zone. And, we had seen kind of a revival in horror anthology movies with the VHS series, and then the Tales of Halloween. Of course, you had a little more low-key Volumes of Blood, both the first and second. And James and I thought that would be a really good way to continue making horror films, but do something a little bit different than what we had done previously.
So Ian come to me with an idea about he'd been thinking about possibly doing an anthology, and I had watched Tales from the Crypt a little bit, but I wasn't real familiar with the concept of an anthology, and he started shooting it to me, and we started talking, and I did some research looking into different anthologies and that, and then we kind of both came to the conclusion that it might be really cool to try and basically make a full feature-length movie out of 5 or 6 short films. And at first, on the surface, it seems kind of, 5 little movies, but there's complications when it comes, because now you're not making one movie, you're making 5 movies and 5 scripts, 5 stories. And but overall, I feel like it turned out really well.
I think it's a love letter to especially B-80s films, slasher films, Creepshow, all those classic films that we've grown up watching. I think it's a love letter to those films, and I hope the viewers and the fans get that. I hope they get what we're doing, and I think they will.
The first thing that James and I did was we started to compile a list of stories that we wanted to tell, and we wanted to do something where each story really had its own genre, all within the horror realm, but each one would really feel very different. A lot of times you see anthology movies and they'll pick like one central theme, and they'll kind of ride that theme out throughout the whole film. And I didn't want that. I knew we wanted to do some kind of like morale tale, a sort of a just desserts concept in some of these, but that was really something we spent a great deal of time with. And then once we had decided on the ideas, I got to work writing.
I think it was kind of challenging, really, because it was almost like you're making 5 films under one sort of banner, and all 5 segments had a different feel, a different vibe, a different look. So the challenge was to get each one to be unique within itself and to have a sort of a different feel per segment. I think that was the big challenge.
Well, the cast was definitely the most expansive cast we've had so far. A lot of different talented performers with a lot of background. At the top of the bill, we have Lloyd Kaufman, the founder of Troma, and Lloyd has been a personality in the horror and sci-fi and schlock film world. I think since 1974. Troma's been around, so it's been around a long time, and Lloyd, really is the one of the kings of B movies, and with the Toxic Avenger and Poultrygeist and a lot of those crazy zany movies, we thought Lloyd would be excellent, sort of in that role as the master of ceremonies.
Right. So, do you want to see something fabulous about this hotel that I'm staying in? It has an actual key. Look at that. It's an actual key. You don't see that anymore, huh?
We had this opportunity to work with Jim, and we brought him up from Nashville, and really good guy and a lot of fun. We had a really good learning opportunity with Jim O'Rear because he's been in the business so long. So just in the brief few days that we worked with Jim for Graveyard Stories, he really taught my crew and I a lot about the world of film and about different ways to set up shots and different acting techniques. So to have Jim O'Rear as well as Lloyd Kaufman at the top of the bill was definitely really cool and great for Moonlight Films.
Jim was a consummate professional. One of the things that I've had the pleasure to do with these productions is I've had the chance to work with some really great actors and actresses and hone my craft, if that be a good word to use. But the beauty of working with Jim O'Rear is I'd already worked with him on Hospital 1 and 2 as his composer, so I'd written music for him. And I already had a relationship established with Jim. The fun part for me was, when you're working with such an amazing actor as Jim O'Rear, is that it brings your A game. He makes you bring your A game. It steps it up for you. And it's a load of fun because, quite frankly, acting to me is my opportunity to escape, who is Virgil, and turn into this other character, this other critter. And Jim slips into characters so seamlessly and so wonderfully. It just makes it possible for you to really wrap your arms around your character and his character and how the two interact.
What's going on, Ian?
I am texting my wife, asking her how her day's been, telling her we've had an exceptional day on set with Jim O'Rear and Virgil Franklin, Tara Bixler, James Stevenson, and Darren Morgan.
Look, there they are.
They are.
They are.
They're here in the flesh. Dining.
So you're happy with everything so far?
It has been an excellent shoot day. We had a great team. We had a fantastic backdrop. We had a hearse. I think we're really stepping up our game here at Moonlight Films with this project.
So on Graveyard Stories, we had kind of decided that we were going to use some new actors and stuff, try out some different people we hadn't worked with before. And, Ian came to me with an idea that he had Jim O'Rear that acted in a lot of other stuff. And then, Lloyd, he had talked with Lloyd's manager. And so we got to work with Lloyd and Jim, two great guys to work with. They've been in a lot of other movies. And then that brought opportunities for us to work with other people that we hadn't worked with before. And actually the cast of Graveyard Stories really overall is probably one of the better cast that we've assembled in Moonlight Films productions previously.
My character is Sam Whitman. The segment I star in is Curse of the Mummy. Sam has a special interest in women and booze, and he devotes a lot of time to both of those. Sam has a good friend, Charlie, a professor friend, and they have been on excursions to Egypt. And on one of those excursions, they actually brought back some relics. And things begin to heat up in the story when a group of Sam's students develop an interest in these relics. As events unfold, things take a dramatic turn for the worse. Sam is faced with some decisions he has to make. And that's really where the story heats up.
Well, when we had started talking about production of the movie, me and Ian had both kind of thought that we wanted very small cameo roles that kind of like what we had in the past. But as Ian started writing and started developing these characters, we both kind of fell in love with characters that were a little bit more than just cameos, and mine happened to be Bobby in Curse of the Mummy. And Bobby's kind of a neurotic character that is, out of the villains in this segment, might be the one that you can relate to. He's kind of that person that's got involved with kind of the wrong people, but he's in this situation and he's not real sure how to get out, and some stuff happens that he's not really okay with, and through that trials, Bobby he suffers a little bit with something that normally wouldn't have happened if maybe he would have took a different path earlier in his life than where he became now. So, but it is kind of different to kind of step back in front of the camera previously from, doing small roles. It's very unique. It gave me a chance to kind of express myself in a different way, and I really enjoyed it.
Well, my segment in the film is Curse of the Mummy, and my character Trevor is He's a bad guy. He's a villain. It's the first time I've really played a villain. I've played some guys that are kind of moody and grumpy, but this guy's definitely a villain. He's not a nice guy, and he has a motive in the film. He wants to steal some artifacts, and things go a little awry. Things don't go maybe as planned, or maybe they are as planned. Maybe it's just planned from the beginning. But either way, it gets pretty bad for him and his comrades, his friends, and it's a good. I'm really happy with the way the segment turned out. I think it's a solid segment, and I think the viewers are going to enjoy the characters and maybe what happens to the characters. So I hope everybody enjoys it.
Well, my segment in Graveyard Stories is entitled Mommy, and my character is Stephanie Anderson. And she is a bit of a neurotic, nervous type mommy. Very, very protective, very loving of her daughter, of course, but a bit on the neurotic side. And she's trying to prepare a birthday party for her 10-year-old daughter, Allie. And it's a bad night out. It's storming. She's invited all the family and friends to come, so she's preparing for this party, but some weird things begin to happen. For one, she can't locate her daughter anywhere, and she has some experiences with some things kind of popping up unexpectedly. Power goes out, things like that. So just a lot of glitches to prevent the evening from going smoothly as she wants. On top of that, her psychiatrist keeps calling her and wanting to speak with her. So she's a bit frustrated that things don't go quite as well as she had hoped.
Well, my character, Walt Grady, in the Goblin Bridge segment, he's kind of a loner. He lives by himself out in the woods, and this attractive woman comes up to visit him, and he obviously doesn't get much company. She just happens to ask the wrong question about something in the vicinity, and he feels compelled to answer, and it doesn't exactly make for a pleasant meeting between the two.
Well, my segment is the Goblin Bridge, and my character is Dakota Nichols, and she's a young woman who is not having a good marriage, so she decides to have an affair. So she's having an affair, and she's out with the guy. She's leaving his house. Husband calls, says he's coming home early. So now she's trying to get home before her husband does. She comes across this bridge that supposedly has a goblin living under it, and that it drags people under and eats them. And so now you have to decide if it's just her guilt making her think there's a goblin under there, if there really is a goblin.
My character, Mitchell Conrad, from the segment Inferno, he's a dirty cop who has some history with drug dealers, doesn't like them much. Part of his backstory is that his wife was killed by a drug dealer. So he has kind of a vengeful side against all the drug dealers and kills a lot of them, which is kind of a bad thing. But I think he ultimately believes he's doing the right thing. He thinks he's helping society by doing what he does. And because he does what he does, he has to have an accomplice, sort of, unwittingly. He has to have a partner. Russo, his police partner, has to help cover for him. And Russo's getting tired of covering for him. It's also starting to eat at him a little bit. Mitchell's getting a little bit, crazy about the things that have happened. Too many deaths, too much paranoia about finally getting caught, making mistakes. So I think that he's slowly but surely going toward the edge. He doesn't have a whole lot of redeeming qualities, but he's a very fun character to play because you get to do a lot of different range of emotions, from evil to scared to all those different things. So it's a really neat journey that the character goes on, and I get to take as an actor.
Andrea is a high school age student, and she has a very interesting relationship with her stepfather. He's somewhat abusive toward her, and throughout the beginning of the segment, Andrea starts to get a little sassy toward him, understandably so. And so she runs away after their last fight. And she's walking around town, and there's a truck following her. And I won't say any more, but there's a twist ending, and I think you'll be surprised. Playing the Andrea character was really fun because as Andrea, I got to be kind of mouthy and a little volatile. And in real life, I'm pretty just laid back, easygoing. So it was kind of cool getting to play a character that's pretty much my total opposite.
My character is Vincent, and Vincent is a loner. He's a musician, so I can affiliate. And he, he's a mysterious dude. We don't have much backstory on him. It's a character that I could more or less kind of create my own backstory in my mind so I could flow with it. He is just walking alongside the road, making his way from place to place, the courtesy of strangers, and he gets picked up by Jim O'Rear's character. And at first, his relationship with Jim seems to be pretty innocuous, pretty simple, pretty fun. He's curious, and he's a fairly smart dude, but as the movie rolls on, without giving too much away, it becomes very apparent that Vincent is in for the ride of his life.
So I think of all the films we've done, this film probably has the most, well, I know it has the most effects. And everything we've pretty much done is practical, old school effects. We really take a lot of pride, I think, in trying to pull off things. Being an indie film, you have a limited budget. So we really try to make things work. We really brainstorm on how could we pull this shot off to make it look realistic, and I think we've done a great job. We definitely upped the ante on effects with this film. I would say our biggest effect would probably be the mummy suit. That was a lot of trial and error, and we did a little research before. First time I'd ever built a mummy suit. And some things didn't work. I wish they would have, but I think what we got looked really good. And it was kind of time consuming based on the way we actually did it. There was a lot of individual wrapping of arms and legs of the actor, and it was interesting, but I think it worked. I hope everybody likes it. I think it's that classic mummy look, and that was probably the biggest effect was the mummy suit. I wish we would have gave him a little more screen time because it did look so good, but I think what we got is really, really solid. So,
well, one of the coolest practical effects that I helped out with was the puppetry on the mummy section. Getting the toys to kind of move was kind of unique and brought its own challenges. The bear and some of the other stuff that moves around. But one of the other cool things that was really cool about it was the lighting, because Ian had kind of played around a little bit in post-editing, and we thought maybe we would do filters to kind of get the style that we were looking for. But the filters just didn't quite work out, so we tried to naturally light it with different colored lights that we had, and that brought a whole new set of challenges.
One of the segments was the Goblin Bridge segment, and that was a pretty interesting shoot. We had a child actor in the goblin costume, and the head was fabricated and crafted with sort of a paper mache like technique, and we really dirtied it up and nastied it. We wanted it nasty and dirty and slimy and wet and just disgusting. And I think we captured that. We used a lot of fake blood, and we actually used real raw meat, which we mixed with fake blood and paint. Got this really just disgusting mixture, and doctored up the costume, and we just wanted it grungy and grimy, and it looks really good. You never know when you're going to do a segment. You have a vision in your head of how it's going to look, and then you try to pull it off. Sometimes it's successful, sometimes it's not, but I think it really turned out good.
I have high hopes for Graveyard Stories also. I think it's by far the best product we've put out, just in terms of production quality and acting and everything. I think it's really solid. And I do see a future with Graveyard Stories. I can see this continuing and being able to tell more stories in a possible sequel or two, which I think would be a lot of fun. It's been hard. It's been the year it took to make was a long year, and a lot of hard work. A lot of late nights, a lot of editing, a lot of pre-production, a lot of commitment from the cast and crew. And without them, we wouldn't be able to make any of these films. So it really has been a great opportunity, and I really do look forward to more Graveyard Stories and more Moonlight films, and just more fun for years to come.